I want to talk about WA's new firearms laws and how they're affecting the people who work hard to feed you every single day. Now, these new laws are being hailed as some of the most strict in the nation. And while the desire for community safety is something that we all share, our farmers and our primary producers are feeling unfairly targeted. Imagine you're working hard to cultivate a vineyard or raise livestock, sheep, cattle, alpacas. The last thing you want is foxes preying on your lambs, rabbits smashing through your crops, or kangaroos eating absolutely everything in sight. It's more than a little deflating. Now, for many farmers, owning a firearm isn't about anything other than effectively and humanely managing those threats. Traps and poisons just don't cut it. They're cruel. They can have an awful effect on native animals. For farmers, firearms are just a practical tool, as important as a tractor or a harvester. Now, community safety is a priority, but the reality is that firearm-related deaths in WA are statistically very rare. In the latest stats that I can get access to, 2022, out of a total of over 17,000 deaths registered in the state, only 27 were related to firearms. That's a tiny fraction, about 0.15% of all deaths. And here's a crucial point. Of those 27, 15, over half, were intentional self-harm. And that means that the majority of firearm fatalities are tragic but self-inflicted. And I've dug deeper, and I've got the receipts if you want them. Of those fatalities, only 2 were committed by licensed legal gun owners. 2. Let's look at the scale. These are the leading causes of death across Australia in 2022. The top 5 were heart disease, over 18,000 deaths, dementia, over 15,000 deaths, COVID, over 9,800 deaths, stroke, nearly 10,000 deaths, lung cancer, nearly 9,000 deaths. So the leading causes of death claim thousands of lives each year, and the 27 firearm-related deaths in WA in 2022 would rank as one of the lowest causes of death, making it statistically insignificant. But all lives matter, of course. It kind of begs the question, though, are these new gun laws primarily performative? Is the government just doing stuff for the applause? When firearm-related deaths constitute such a tiny percentage of deaths, and with the majority of those being self-inflicted, why are we making it so much harder for our farmers and our primary producers to do their work? No one advocates for easy access to firearms. The tragic consequences of that are evident in places like the United States. But we do seem to be focusing our attention and resources in the wrong areas, simply to be seen to be doing the right thing, while neglecting the leading causes of death that claim thousands of lives annually. Is it fair to say that fast food joints and sugar-laden snacks and soft drinks are many times more culpable, more responsible for premature death than firearms? This new legislation also introduces mandatory health assessments, including mental health checks, for firearm licenses. And while the intention to promote responsible ownership is completely understandable, the real-world implications for rural communities are full on. Doctors in these areas are already overburdened. It can take weeks to get an appointment. And then there's the question of liability. What if someone did do something silly after passing a mental health assessment? Is the doctor liable? This is not going to make them want to make those appointments. Our old police commissioner here in WA, Carl O'Callaghan, has pointed out that targeting law-abiding firearm owners, such as farmers and sport shooters, is nonsensical and will not address the way more important issue of illegal firearms and violent crime. And I can't help but think that the government's focus might be misplaced, prioritising the appearance of action over actually dealing with the root causes of crime and addressing the more significant threats to life in our state. What we need now is a clear acknowledgement of the essential role that firearms play in agriculture for controlling problems like foxes and rabbits and kangaroos, as well as fair compensation during buyback programs that truly reflect the value of those surrendered firearms. As it stands today, the new law means that many current licence holders need to surrender guns they're no longer allowed to own, but the compensation is just so low, there's an obvious risk that a firearm could very well end up on the black market. A genuine dialogue between the government and the agricultural community is essential, was essential. This legislation was rushed through with very, very little consultation or debate. We need the government to listen to the real concerns of primary producers and work with farmers to develop realistic solutions that uphold both public safety and the ability of our primary producers to actually grow the food that we all need. I am not arguing for more guns. In fact, I'd like to see far fewer. New licences should be hard to get. Farmers who sell up and move to the metropolitan areas no longer need guns and should surrender them. No one is arguing that guns should be more freely available. But our farmers have a job to do, and the government is making that much, much harder. I realise some will see my position as controversial, but we need to recognise that the agricultural sector really does have unique needs, and the government and the law should do a better job of recognising that. We need firearms laws that provide a safe community and a thriving agricultural industry.